Hello and welcome to this session of Karate Framework which is used in test automation. Now in this session we are going to see a couple of topics which are related to response. So HTTP response related keywords, response bytes and couple of factors in the response and also one more thing called as request timestamp. So let's get started. So I'm on their GitHub web page and I'm going to the response section. Yeah, response section, and these are the couple of keywords we are going to see. So first is the response. So for any API call we will get a response, and we will get the status codes. Most of the time we expect a JSON response, so how to pass the JSON response and all that we are going to see, and so on. So I have this sample scenario where I'm just hitting one URL, one endpoint, and I'm getting a response and I'm printing it. So for now let's see how it goes. I'm just printing the response here. The response JSON validation, JSON path validation and all we will see in the upcoming discussions. If I hit this URL from Postman, if I hit it from Postman, right, so I'm getting this Genet, Weaver and so much other data. So that is what I'm going to print now. Case 1 starts. I made a request. Yeah, I got a 200 OK response and yeah. So data I'm going to print Genet.weaver at whatever. Okay, so this is how you print the response. Now let's proceed. Now, if you want to validate the JSON response, basically JSON validation on the response, there are a couple of ways to do it. So first thing is response.data. So if you see in the response, I'm getting data as a key, and this is all the value. So I can directly parse it like a dot operator, like a JSON path, a response dot data dot first name, and I can compare. So we have done match keyword already. So using match I can do this, or for simplicity they have Karate provided this dollar symbol, so you can simply say response space dollar, or you can simply start with dollar also. This is very simple one. Dollar dot data dot first name equal to single quote Genet. So this should match. Now for some reason, if you want to match the entire response, let's say if you want to match this entire response, so you can have that expected response in in a in a separate variable, and then you can match the entire response to the expected entire response. So that also you can do. Same thing, so dollar equal to this expected full JSON response. So these three lines are equivalent, and these three lines are also equivalent. So let's just compare. So ultimately what will happen is if there are any failures, we will get an exception. So if there are no failures, that means it works. Response validation. So when you are validating the entire JSON response, just check that any of the field does not have any on the fly or on demand token generation or any kind of a key generation, because that may vary. So the entire response will not match. Right. So success and no failures. That means the response was comparison was successful. So this is how you can do a comparison. Now there is some more information. Yeah, same thing we have covered. Same thing you can do for XML also, but I have not covered it. JSON path shortcuts. So there are some shortcuts. JSON path shortcuts we will cover entirely in a separate session, maybe after this session only, in the next video. So stay tuned. So after response we have response bytes. Response byte is not that much used very frequently. So maybe if you are downloading one image file or any binary file, and if you want to compare the exact length, byte by byte, the exact length, then you can do that. So if you see this particular image, I'm going to get, and I'm going to verify whether the number of bytes which I expect and are actually matching with the actual one. So I have already downloaded this image. 7image.jpg, and that's what I'm going to compare. So I'm going to get this URL, and yeah, I'm going to compare. So I'm going to read this file separately, expected JSON, expected JPG binary bytes and dot length, and that I'm going to compare with the actual uh, uh, actual received response length. Okay, you can directly compare like this also. So let's get started. Byte comparison is very rarely used in automation, but just in case if you need at some point of time, then this is the example. Yeah, so if you see this printed thing, these are all the binary content of that image file which are printed. And yeah, so comparison is successful and no failures. That means the bytes comparison is successful. Okay, now after that, next one is response status. So this is very widely used. So you can compare the response with the expected response code, basically response status. You can compare if it is, let's say you're expecting either 200 or 400, so you can say whether it is between the range and so on. So let's see that. Right, so for that I'm just going to make this URL back to this one, and this I'm going to remove. So yeah, so normally I'm getting one URL with an endpoint, and yeah, so the response, when I hit that URL, I get a response, and I also get a response status code also in this variable called as response status. So for now I'm just doing a backup, and then this I'm comparing with either 200 or 204 or whatever status codes I want to compare. You can also compare if it is within the range, within an array, JSON array. So match this JSON array contains this one. So either it contains 200 or 201 or any whatever number of status code you are expecting. You can also compare if it is more than 200, less than 300, or some different comparisons. You can also check if it is in using Karate range, Karate dot range between 200 to 299 and contains response status. So almost similar to this, but this is the entire range you are going to cover. Okay, so response status. Let's see response status. So basically it is hitting this URL and I'm expecting 200. Okay, and I'm doing all these comparisons. So if it doesn't fail, that means it is successful. Yeah, so no failures, and we are getting the response 200. Okay, and all this comparison has matched. So response status, see the response headers. So in this response, if you see, this is the response and response header. So there might be a situation where you want to compare the response uh, header, some of the headers, some default headers or some specific headers. So let's say content type is application JSON. This typically is, I mean, it's very normal, very common. The response application slash JSON. So that we are going to compare. So response header, content type 0. So if you see the the response content type, the response is application JSON colon char set equal to UTF hyphen 8. So this is the most common response. So if you want to compare the only first one, so then you can say response header content type 0. Okay, yeah, actual content type, and you're going to compare karate dot response dot header content type contains application dot json. Remember, if you do equal to equal to, then you may compare it with entire thing. Okay, this entire thing. but you want to compare only JSON application slash JSON. So you just say contains. You say contains. In the response type also, you there's a variable also. So response header is also there. Response type is also there. You can compare if it is JSON or XML or any uh, format of your choice. All right. So no failures. That means it is successful. So all the header comparison are done. Now let's see what is next one. Response time. I think response headers we have seen just now, and response cookies and response time. So response time is also one of the important factor. Uh, for certain APIs, you may need to check whether response time is, let's say, less than 200 milliseconds or 300 milliseconds as per the requirement from your project. So you can compare it with response time. Response time is an additional variable or a keyword available. And when the response time, compare it within whether it is less than this. It is basically the value of the system.out current milliseconds, and you can also see request timestamp. Request timestamp is basically the time when the request was initiated. At that time, what was the system dot current milliseconds? So that time is printed here. Yeah, at the time when request started, it was this time, and the response actually was less than 1000 milliseconds. So it was 545 milliseconds. So it is well within the limit. Response time, response type also we have seen if it is JSON or not, and request timestamp. Yeah, this is also we have seen. This is very rarely used, but if you want to see when the request was initiated and when the response was received, and if you want to calculate the difference, you can do that. So that is all about re- response section. All these keywords we have covered. Okay, thank you.